Hello, this is Allie with the Perception Trainers, author of The Perception Diet, and today we are going to cover part 2 in the Are You Actually Afraid to Heal series. So if you haven't watched part 1, go do that first. I put the link down below, because without that, this is not going to make so much sense. So in the last video, essentially what we covered were the 3 main reasons that I've seen that people subconsciously hold themselves back from fully becoming healthy and well and recovering physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually from disease and disorder. So again, this is not blaming you for your sickness, and again, this may not even apply to you at all. It is very possible that even if you've been dealing with something for a very long time, that there is no part of you that is subconsciously holding you back from recovery. This is not to say that everyone that's been sick for a long time has these things. It's just to say that it may be. If this is for you, again, this is something you're going to look inside yourself and determine for yourself if this is something that is true for you. And then it's about saying that, good, you've discovered a new thing so that you can move forward. But like I say, this is not necessarily to say that all people who have been sick for a long time are subconsciously holding themselves back from being well. I don't believe that. It's just some people are. So again, it's not about blame, it's not about shame, it's not overgeneralization. It's just saying that if these things do apply to you, it's giving yourself a deeper level of awareness so that you can move forward, right? So the 3 main things that we talked about last time were that hold people back from healing is, number 1, that they've subconsciously become overly identified with being sick, and so letting go of that identity is scary and they don't want to do that. Number 2 is that they're getting a need met that they do not otherwise know how to get met, or that they feel on some level is inappropriate and they shouldn't be getting met, but right, when we have a need, and so we're going to meet it. And so if we genuinely believe that the need that we have is inappropriate, or that getting it met any other way is inappropriate, we're going to get it met in a kind of shadowy way, right? And the third thing is connection, that so much of our society is built upon connecting through struggle, and that we are naturally beings that crave a heart-to-heart connection and that deep connection. And a lot of, they're even doing a lot of research into like addiction and like addiction recovery, and discovering that like reintegrating people back into society and reintegrating people back into like meaningful connected relationships kicks the need for addictive substances. And it's like, this, I believe, is like a demonstration of just how powerful our need to feel connected to one another is. Okay, so those are the 3 main reasons why one might hold themselves back subconsciously from healing. So in this video, I'm going to talk about, okay, so what do you do with this? How do you know if you have these things, and if you do, how do you start to move forward? So number 1, again, take some time to sit with these questions, right? Who would I be if I wasn't sick? So who am I going to be if I don't have this physical illness, if I don't have this mental anguish, if I don't have this emotional trauma that I'm always going through, if I don't have this spiritual stuff that I'm always dealing with? If I were to be well, who would I be? What would my life look like? How would I interact with people? Just start to entertain this idea. And I want you to just notice if there's any fear or any anxiety or any resistance that comes up in you when you start to think of no longer having this thing in your life. Okay? And again, first things first is really, really, really to go in with this knowing that you're not going to beat yourself up for anything that you discover. You need to be a safe place for you through this discovery process, otherwise it won't work, right? even if you have these unconscious, subconscious blockages to healing, but if you know, the second you kind of sort of start to see that you might be involved in your own staying sickness and you beat yourself up for that, it's like you're gonna shut down your own ability to heal. Okay, so approaching this with the utmost care and compassion and love for yourself is absolutely vital. Okay, so again, just think, who would I be? What would my life look like? How would I live if I didn't have this thing anymore? And just start to really think about that and really hold that vision, and again, see where you might have fear or resistance to that. And rather than getting upset with yourself about that, rather than running away from that fear, start to look at that fear. Sit with that fear. Really investigate that fear. Why am I afraid of what I will become when I don't have this anymore? Okay? Which essentially leads into step number 2, which is really look at the needs that are being met through being ill. Okay? Where are the payoffs? What are you afraid you're going to lose when you recover? Right? What are you afraid is going to go away when you recover? And so to start this process, I like to say, okay, like, if you can, look at it from the perspective of like, what are the positive benefits to my being sick, to my being unwell, right? What are the benefits? What am I getting out of this? Because there's always something positive about everything, okay? There's literally always something positive about everything. So thinking in your mind, what are the payoffs of this? And again, this doesn't even necessarily mean that because there are payoffs to what you're going through that you're subconsciously holding yourself back from moving forward. It can just show you that, you know, essentially everything in life always has something positive in it, right? So even if you can honestly say to yourself, I am not holding myself from recovering at all. This is what I'm genuinely going through right now, and here are the benefits. That can be a nice thing to look at and to say, like, look, yeah, like, it means that people spend a little bit more time with me. It means that I have a reason to slow down. It means that I have a reason to, I feel like it gives me permission to ask to be seen or to be taken care of or whatever, when I never felt like I had that before. And that doesn't necessarily mean that now I've got something that's holding me back from recovering, right? Because it could just be like, wow, this is like an added blessing that, like, I'm learning that I do need to give myself permission to ask for my needs to be met from other people, even after I recover, which I am going to. You see what I'm saying? But really just deeply looking at what needs are being met, or what fears do you have about your ability to perform and live in the world that your illness is protecting you from? Because I think that this is usually the biggest thing. Honestly, I'm gonna say that, you know, obviously do your own investigation, but generally what I see is that, like, the two main things that keep people ill is, or, you know, kind of wanting to stay in their stuckness, to stay stuck in their unwellness, is number one, that it's like the only time when people allow other people to nurture and nourish and take care of them. And otherwise people feel completely like they're not allowed to ask for that care and that nurturing and that attention. And I believe that, again, this boils down to a whole deeper root of believing that we're unworthy of attention and love and care from other people, and asking for that stuff, right? Asking to be cuddled, asking to be seen, asking for someone to just, you know, nourish you for a little bit, or even to receive that from people who are trying to give it to you, right? You may have a subconscious web of belief that says that you're not allowed to receive that like the only time you're allowed to accept love and care and whatever is when you're weak and when you're down, rather than us being a community, a network of beings that support one another. And to receive support from someone doesn't mean that you're down, right? And that it doesn't mean you have to be down in order to receive support. It could be that we receive support from each other even when we're well, that we amplify one another. That, like you could be doing great and then someone can come along and give you some support and give you some love and give you some encouragement and give you some attention, and that just amplifies you, right? So it doesn't always have to come from a place of deficiency. So again, really looking, what needs are being met through my illness, and how can I start to allow myself to get those needs met outside of the sickness. So if I am looking for someone to just pay attention to me, are there some healthy ways that I can ask someone to pay attention to me outside of my illness, right? If I really am just wanting to be seen, and maybe I have some resistance to that. I feel like it's not okay for me to want to be seen. I feel like it's not okay for me to want to be acknowledged. I feel like it's not okay for me to want to feel special, right? Well, what if I start to kind of allow myself to be seen and heard and validated and, maybe even seen as special outside of my illness? You see? And know that there's going to be resistance to getting those needs met outside of your illness. Okay? And that resistance is going to come up, and that you love that resistance, and that you do the things anyways, right? So what needs are being met, and then how can I start to get those needs met outside of my sickness? So if I didn't have this sickness anymore, how could I get these needs met? Would I allow myself to get these needs met? If I have resistance to letting myself get these needs met, why? What's the story I'm telling myself about these needs? What's the story I'm telling myself about the person that I am because I have these needs? All of this needs to be looked at, okay? And I think this is beneficial because I think even if you're not sick, even if you are sick but you're not holding yourself back, we all have needs that we subconsciously suppress because we've told ourselves it's not okay, right? And then that's always going to come out as shadow because we're always going to get our needs met. But if we're getting our needs met through shadow, it's never as fulfilling and it's never as beneficial as it could be if you just said, okay, you know what? No, I am the kind of person that needs this, and I'm going to embrace this about myself. And how can I start to, as I embrace this about myself, how can I get these needs met in a healthy way? And you will find that it is true. You will always find that you can get your need met in a healthy way. That it doesn't have to be self-destructive or destructive in any other way, right? And then the second thing is really looking at, where do I feel like I'm incapable? And if I didn't have the excuse of my illness to keep me safe, where do I feel like I'm going to have to do things that I don't trust that I can do, right? And those fears need to be looked at. A lot of people hold themselves back with their illness, and because it gives them an excuse not to have to do what they think they're going to have to do on the other side, right? So really looking at, what are the responsibilities I feel like I'm going to have to take on if I'm better? What are the things that I feel like I don't trust myself to be able to do if I didn't, right? If I didn't have the excuse of not having to do them because I'm sick? Where do you feel like you're incapable? And really start to look at that stuff, right? And say, okay, I've got a fear that I'm incapable of doing this. I have a fear that I'm incapable of doing that. I have a fear that I'm incapable of doing this. And a lot of the time, again, I've seen that people who stay sick are doing so because they're trying to keep their world small, because they genuinely do not believe in their own capacity to handle life, to handle what they think they're going to have to handle what they think they're going to have to face as a well person. And again, sometimes it's even like boundaries. It's like feeling like people are going to have expectation of you then, and that you're going to have to do a whole bunch of things and that you don't want to do. And sometimes it's, learning to say no, learning to say, instead of needing the excuse of, well, I'm sick so I can't do that, you just say, look, I'm not doing that, right? And again, it's all self-value and self-worth, and these things need to be looked at. And then the third thing that I recommend is, how can you start to connect with people over things that are not your sickness, over things that are not your struggle, over things that are not other people's struggle? Can you start to develop a deeper connection, even just with yourself? Like, even just starting with your relationship with yourself. Can you celebrate life rather than lament life with yourself? Can you start to make the focus of some of your conversations with other people the celebration of what's going right, rather than the sharing over what is going wrong, right? And even just considering, could I be the type of person that deeply connects with other people over our successes and over our excitements and over our inspirations and over our joys and our pleasures, rather than deeply connecting with people over our struggle and what we're facing that we feel is hard, right? Because again, it's okay and it's 100% legit, and I think that it's important that all people on the planet give ourselves permission to say, I crave deep connection. I want to be seen. I want to be heard. I want to feel that heart-to-heart connection, that deep, deep connection. And sometimes we have to use the struggle in order to get there, right, as the stepping stone in learning how to deeply connect with one another. But to just say, like, this isn't the only way, right? There is a possibility of deep heart-to-heart connection, to be fully seen by somebody, to be loved by somebody, to be acknowledged by somebody, to connect with another being over exciting things, over, like I say, inspiration and joy and peace and love and all of this. That that connection is not only through struggle, and that it might be possible to connect over something else. So just allowing yourself to really consider the options and the possibilities of yourself being well. To allow yourself to really consider what needs you have and can you get them met in a healthier way. And to allow yourself to have those needs and to give yourself permission to have the needs that you have, and then say, how can I meet these in a healthy way? And then, like I say, giving yourself permission to want connection, because we all want that. It's human. And that connection is possible outside of struggle. Okay? So if you have any questions, comments, concerns, please leave them down below. I'd love to hear from you. But if you're going to get mad at me and say that I'm saying that your disease is your fault, I'm not saying that. I'm probably not even going to acknowledge those comments, because I've made that very clear. This is not what this is about. This is about empowering you to take even deeper control of yourself and your position and your ability to live a vibrant, huge life. Okay? This isn't about blaming yourself. This isn't about blaming the person who's ill. This isn't about saying that all people who are sick are holding themselves back. That's not what I'm saying, and I've made that very clear. Okay? Find me on Facebook. I'm Perception Trainers. Find me on Instagram, Ali_Perception Trainers. Join the Patreon community. We meet 3 times a month, and I will see you in the next video.